The warden handed me a brown envelope with $3 and a paper that said I was a free man, and I stood a long minute at the gate of Yarrow Bend prison before I believed my feet would carry me through it. 9 winters that gate had held me on the wrong side of a killing I never did. Now the deputy was nodding me out into the Arizona dust, and the only thing I owned in the world was a saddle they had kept locked in a shed, and the name of a woman I had no right to expect was still mine. Her name was Tess Latham. The last time I had seen her face was through the bars of a county wagon, her hand pressed white against the slat as they hauled me east to my trial. She had said, "I will wait, Caleb." I had told her, plain as I could through a swollen mouth, not to. I had said, a woman does not wait 9 years for a dead name. She had said it again anyway. Wait. Then the wagon turned the corner of Cooper Creek's only street and she was gone, and the next time I drew a free breath there were 9 notches scratched into a cell wall above my bunk. I knew the story of how I had walked out only because a man named Sim Boyd had finally died of his lungs in a different prison 3 months back and asked the chaplain for a paper and a witness. He had said on his last hour that the cattle buyer down by Wadle's Crossing in the spring of '78 had been killed by his hand, not mine, and that he had let an innocent man hang for 9 years for it. The chaplain had written it to the territorial judge himself. The judge had taken 6 weeks to read it and another 4 to sign. So the warden gave me $3 and a paper, and I went out into a country I no longer fit, with the name Sim Boyd on a deathbed paper in my coat pocket and the name Tess Latham written nowhere but in me. I did not waste the dollars on a coach. I bought a tin cup, a sack of jerky, and a rail ticket east as far as it would carry me, and I sat with my hat tipped low because 9 years of prison teaches a man to make himself small. At the end of the rail I bought a thin mare from a Mexican drover at Pico's and rode her east through Texas with no money for a hotel and no need of one. I slept on the ground. I drank from cattle tanks. The country looked the same and looked wrong both. Cottonwoods I remembered, mesquite I remembered, a sky I remembered, but I did not remember being a man any cottonwood could shade. I had ridden out of Cooper Creek a young cattleman of 26 with 200 head and a homestead Tess, and I had stood on side by side in cold hours, though we had not yet been wed. I rode back at 35 with a paid-out hand of fingers thin from prison, and a face the mirror at a roadhouse in Sanderson said I would not have known. The hair at my temples had gone the color of ash. There was a notch in my left ear from a fight in the 2nd year I did not now remember the cause of. I am telling you these things plain, because the man on the rail platform that day in Cooper Creek was not the man Tess Latham had said she would wait for. I knew it walking down the steps, and I almost turned back. I did not turn back. I had carried her name through 9 winters. I owed it the courage of the last 6 miles. Cooper Creek had grown a little and shrunk in other ways. There was a new bank where Hennig's livery had been, and Hennig himself was a marker in the church plot. The stonecutter had given him a Bible book and his birth year, and that was all. The dry goods man Will still kept his store, only he was 60 now and his daughter ran the counter. She did not know my face. I bought a sack of meal and a side of bacon and a paper of pins, because a man does not ride up to a woman's door with nothing in his hand if he has any pride at all, and I asked her careful, after the Latham place out toward the breaks. The Latham place? The young woman wiped flour on her apron and gave me a long look that was kind without meaning to be. She's still there, lives alone. Folks call it Tess's more than they ever called it her daddy's. She set my coin in the box. You a kin? Old neighbor, I said. You'll find her at the milking this hour, she said, if you find her at all. I rode the road I had not seen in 9 years, and every bend of it was a fist on my chest. The Methodist roof where we had sat through a hot August funeral the spring before I was taken. The bridge over Cooper Creek itself where I had once knelt and put a wildflower into her hair because I had nothing else to give her, and we had both laughed because she was 23 and braver than I had any right to. The fork in the road where the county wagon had hauled me away. I came up on her gate at 3 in the afternoon with the sun lying flat on the porch boards, and what I saw stopped me cold. The house was standing, the barn was standing. There were chickens in the dust and a milk cow stamping at flies under the chinaberry tree, and a small kitchen garden with cornstalks gone tall and red beans climbing the cornstalks the old way her mother had taught her. There were 2 rows of late tomatoes staked with cedar pegs. There was a wash on the line, a calico dress, 2 muslin shirts, a pair of men's breeches I did not understand for a moment until I saw the patch on the knee and remembered they were the breeches she had patched for me the week I was arrested and had never given back. The pegs were her mother's red-painted pegs. The whole place was hers. 9 years it had been hers alone. The wire was tight, the gate did not sag, the wash was clean. A widow who had no widow's papers, a wife who had never gotten a wedding day, holding 260 acres against the country by the strength of her own 2 hands. I sat the mare a full minute on the road and did not breathe. I had ridden every mile from Yarrow Bend telling myself she was married. I had told myself the cruelest version of the homecoming so the truth, when I got it, would not crack me. I had told myself she was the banker Aldridge's wife and had 3 children and a parlor with a piano. I had told myself she was buried beside her father and the place was sold off to a Mexican family who would not know my face. I had told myself everything but this, the wash on her line, the breeches I had once worn, the gait she had not let sag. The door scraped. She came out of the barn with a milk pail in one hand and a stripping rag over her shoulder, and she stopped when she saw the man at the gate. The afternoon light was on her face. She was 32 now, and the years had put a fine line at the corner of each eye and a steadiness in her mouth that the girl I had ridden away from had not yet earned. She wore the calico washed pale. Her hair was pinned up the way her mother had pinned hers. She did not call out. She set the milk pail down slow on the porch board, the way a person sets a thing down they want to keep both hands for. "Caleb," she said, just my name, like she had been saying it under her breath for 9 years and finally got to put it into the air. I got off the mare. My knees almost did not. I led the horse to the gate and I tied her to the post and I opened the gate and I walked the 11 steps to the porch and I took my hat off, because that was a thing a man does, and I said the only thing I had to say. "They let me out, Tess. It was Sim Boyd. He told them on his dying day." She put a hand to her mouth. She did not cry. She just stood with her hand to her mouth and looked at me, and I could see her counting the gray in my hair, counting the knuckle I had broken in the second winter, counting the years on my face. Then she lowered her hand and said the second word she had said to me in 9 years. "Come in." So I went into her house. The walls were whitewashed. There was a quilt on the bed I did not recognize. There was a Bible on the table with a slip of red ribbon in it. There was a tin of coffee, a tin of sugar, a tin of salt, all marked in her hand. There was a small mirror by the door with a horseshoe nail driven above it, and on the nail hung my old bandana, faded near to white, folded square. She had kept it 9 years. She poured coffee. Her hands were not quite steady. Mine were not either. We sat across her father's table, the same table I had eaten venison stew at the night before they took me, and she watched me drink, and then she set hers down and she said, "Tell me, all of it, slow." I told her about Sim Boyd's lungs and the chaplain's paper and the judge's 6 weeks. I told her about the $3 and the rail ticket. I told her I had told myself she was married. I told her I had told myself she was dead. I told her I had not been able to find a way to write a letter from inside a prison wall that did not put her in danger from the cousins of the man who was killed. I told her I had counted 9 winters on a wall above my bunk with a tin spoon and 1 mark for the first day of every December. She listened. She did not move her hands from her cup until I was done. Then she told me her side. Her father had died the second winter, the same winter the eviction notice came for the note Aldridge had held on the place. She had ridden into Cooper Creek alone at 25 and stood in front of the new bank counter and told the banker Aldridge she would pay it month by month or she would die on her own porch trying. Aldridge had laughed. She had paid it month by month. She had sold every head of cattle her father had left her, 6 head, and bought a milk cow. She had taken in mending. She had grown corn and beans and tomatoes and a hard small kind of squash that kept all winter. The 3rd year she had taken in a school child for the school term to teach reading at the kitchen table and got paid in flour. The 5th year she had paid Aldridge his last dollar and had the deed put in her own name only. 6 men have asked me, she said, very plain, looking at her cup and not at me. Aldridge himself in the 7th year after his wife passed, a widower up from Brazoria, a surveyor, 2 cattle hands who needed a place, the young preacher who took the Methodist last spring. He asked kindly and I told him kindly. I told all 6 the same thing. She looked up. Her eyes were dry and they did not waver. I said I had given my word to a man before they hauled him east, and I had not had it back from him yet. I could not speak. I put my hand over my mouth like a fool, and I could not speak. "Caleb," she said, "look at me." I looked at her. "You did not ask me to wait," she said. "I want that said. I waited because I chose to. You owe me nothing for it." "Tess, hear me out." Her voice did not shake. "If you have come back to me, come back free, not because you owe me, not because you are sorry, not because you are tired. Come back because you still want to. If you do not, you can sleep in the barn tonight and ride out in the morning, and I will not hold 1 minute of it against you. I have made my own life here. I will keep on making it. I sat across from her, and I looked at the woman who had kept that gate from sagging and that wire tight for 9 winters of my absence. And I thought about all the nights I had lain on a prison bunk, and told myself she would surely be a stranger by the time I got out, if I got out at all. And I knew right then I had been wrong about every part of it but the one thing that mattered. "Tess," I said, "I am 35 years old and I have $3 and a thin mare and a back full of nothing the world wants. I came back because I have wanted to come back every morning of 9 years. I came back because there is nothing else I want to do with the years I have left except do them with you, if you will have me. I would have come back if you had been married. I would have come back if you had been buried. I would have laid a flower on your stone and gone west and slept rough the rest of my days. I did not know you were here. I came anyway." She set her cup down. She got up from her father's table. She walked around to my side of it. She put her hand on the side of my face, a hand calloused at the inside of the thumb from the milk pail, a hand that had pulled wire and pounded fence and held a gate against the country for 9 winters of a name. She put her other hand on the other side. "Then welcome home, Caleb Morrow," she said. "I will not say what we did after that, because there is a part of 2 people that belongs to them and not to anyone listening. I will say I slept that night in her father's barn on a clean horse blanket, because a man does not move into a woman's house before he has earned a roof under her name. I will say the next morning I was up before dawn and I drew her milk for her and split her stove wood and walked her fences and found 3 gaps and a coyote den and 1 broken peg I could fix with a knife. I will say I rode the thin mare into Cooper Creek the 3rd day with the deed she had earned alone in my saddlebag and stopped at the new bank where Aldridge sat at his desk gone gray as I had, and I put the deed on his blotter and I said, I would like to add my name to my wife's if my wife will have me. The land stays in her name first. He looked at me a long time, then he picked up his pen. We were married by the young Methodist preacher the 4th Sunday after I came home. Tess wore her mother's gray wedding dress that her mother had married her father in, and I wore a clean white shirt and the patched breeches she had washed for me that first afternoon. The preacher was the one who had asked her in her 6th year and been told kindly no, and he smiled at me when he said the words like a man who had been told the right answer all along and was glad of it. He did not stumble. He said the words clean. We farmed that quarter together 21 years. We never had children of our own. The prison had taken more from me than years, and Tess and I had spoken plain about it the first week and made our peace with it together, but we took in 2 boys her cousin sent us from Houston when their daddy died of the fever, and we raised them up honest, and they call us folks to this day. The older one named his first daughter Tess. I held that baby in my hands in 1903 and I cried like an old man, which is what I was by then. Tess Morrow died in the spring of her 63rd year. I buried her on the rise above the chinaberry tree where she had stood that first afternoon with the milk pail in her hand, and I dug the grave myself slow because I did not want any other hands on it. I dug it deep. I put her mother's red-painted gate pegs on the marker. I am writing this on the porch she kept tight against the country. I am 72. The breeches she patched are folded on the chair beside me. The bandana is on the nail by the door where she put it the 2nd winter I was away. There is a milk cow under the chinaberry tree. The wire is still tight because I keep it tight because she taught me how. There is a thing I once said before I am done. A woman waited 9 winters for a man the courts had called a killer. She did not wait because anyone asked her to. She did not wait because she was a fool. She waited because she had given her word, and because she had looked once into the face of a young man across her father's table and seen what she had seen there, and she had decided long before they hauled him east that she would not lower her own life to fit a verdict she did not believe. She kept her gate tight. She paid her note. She turned 6 honest men away kindly. And when at last the wrong was set right, and the man she had given her word to came up the road on a thin mare with $3 and a paper, she set down the milk pail slow, and she said his name and she said, "Come in." That is the homecoming a man works the rest of his life to deserve. I have spent 21 years trying. I will spend whatever I have left. The land is in both our names now. The gate does not sag. And when the boys come up to visit they ride in past the chinaberry tree and lift their hats to the rise where she lies, and they call this place what the town has called it from the start. They call it Tess's.